The day my family threw me out like garbage was the same day I realized blood means nothing when money talks louder. I stood outside the iron gates of the mansion I grew up in, suitcase in one hand and Jennifer's trembling fingers clutched in the other, watching my father's cold eyes through the security camera. His voice crackled through the intercom like broken glass cutting through my chest. "Christopher, you are no longer my son. You chose that worthless woman over your family, over your inheritance, over everything we built for you. Don't ever come back." My mother didn't even have the decency to say goodbye. She just stood behind him in the foyer, arms crossed, her face a mask of disappointment and disgust. My younger sister Deanna smirked from the window upstairs, probably already calculating how much bigger her share of the family fortune would be now that I was gone. Jennifer squeezed my hand tighter, her eyes filling with tears she refused to let fall. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Christopher. This is all my fault." I turned to her. This woman my family called worthless, this woman they said was beneath me. This woman who worked double shifts at a bookstore just to pay for her mother's medical bills. I looked into her eyes, those honest, beautiful eyes that never once asked me for anything, and I smiled. "Don't apologize," I said firmly. "They're the ones who will regret this. Not us." She tried to smile back but her lips quivered. We had nothing. No family support. No trust fund. No safety net. Just 2 suitcases, a small savings account I'd managed to hide from my father's controlling grip, and a love my family would never understand. As we walked away from that mansion, I didn't look back. I couldn't, because I knew if I did, I might see my own doubt reflected in those towering gates, but Jennifer looked back. She looked back at the life I was leaving behind for her, and I saw the guilt eating her alive. I swore to myself right then and there, no matter what it took, I would prove to her, to my family, to the entire world that choosing her was the best decision I ever made. I just didn't know it would take 5 years of blood, sweat and betrayal before they came crawling back. My name is Christopher Ashford, and before I became the man I am today, I was nothing more than a privileged heir sleepwalking through a life designed by someone else. Born into the Ashford dynasty, one of the wealthiest real estate empires in the country. I grew up surrounded by marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and people who smiled at me not because they liked me, but because my last name opened doors theirs never could. My father, Richard Ashford, built his fortune from the ground up, and he never let anyone forget it. He was a towering man, not just in height but in presence. When he walked into a room, conversations stopped. Deals closed. Grown men stuttered. He expected perfection from everyone, but especially from me, his only son, the one meant to carry the family legacy forward. My mother, Helena, was the picture of elegance and cold ambition. She hosted charity galas, sat on museum boards and judged everyone who wasn't part of her carefully curated social circle. To her, marriage wasn't about love. It was about alliances, mergers, maintaining status. She had already chosen my future wife before I even finished university, some heiress from another wealthy family, whose name I can't even remember now because I never cared enough to try. Then there was Deanna, my younger sister by 3 years. Spoiled, manipulative, and sharp as a knife. She learned early how to twist our parents around her finger, and she enjoyed watching me struggle under their impossible expectations. She never had to prove herself the way I did. Being the daughter meant she could marry into wealth. Being the son meant I had to create it, multiply it, protect it. I was suffocating. Every day felt like wearing a suit, 2 sizes too small. I worked at the family company, attended the boring meetings, smiled at the boring dinners, dated the boring women my mother paraded in front of me. I was 26 years old and I felt like I was 60. Then I met Jennifer. It was raining that day, one of those sudden summer storms that caught everyone off guard. I had ducked into a small bookstore near the business district, shaking water from my coat, annoyed that my driver had dropped me off 2 blocks away. The store smelled like old paper and lavender. It was cramped, cluttered, and completely unlike anywhere I usually spent my time. And there she was, standing behind the counter, hair tied in a messy bun, glasses sliding down her nose, completely absorbed in a book. Even though there were customers waiting. "Excuse me," I said, a little sharper than I intended. She looked up, startled, and for a second our eyes met. Hers were warm, brown, and utterly unimpressed. "Oh, sorry," she said, closing her book. "What can I help you with?" I wasn't used to people treating me like I was ordinary. It caught me off guard. "I need a book," I said dumbly. She raised an eyebrow. "Well, you're in the right place." "What kind?" I didn't actually need a book. I just said the first thing that came to mind. Something about business strategy. She nodded, came around the counter and led me to a shelf in the back. She pulled out 3 different titles, explained each one with surprising knowledge, and didn't once ask who I was or try to flatter me. When I went to pay, I noticed her name tag. Jennifer. Do you always read on the job? I asked, trying to sound teasing instead of rude. Only when the customers are more boring than the books, she replied with a completely straight face. Then she smiled, just a little, and something inside me cracked open. I went back the next day. And the next. I made excuses, bought books I didn't need, asked questions I already knew the answers to. Jennifer saw through me immediately. You know, she said, one afternoon, if you want to ask me out, you can just say so. You don't need to buy the entire mystery section. I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in months. All right then. Would you have dinner with me? She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding whether I was worth the trouble. Sure, she finally said. But somewhere normal. Not some fancy place where I'll need a manual to understand the menu. That dinner changed everything. Jennifer was real. She didn't care about my money or my family name, mostly because I didn't tell her at first. We talked about books, about dreams, about the kind of life we actually wanted instead of the one we were supposed to have. She told me about her mother, who was sick, about working 2 jobs to cover the medical bills, about giving up her own college dreams to take care of her family. She didn't say it like she wanted pity. She said it like it was just life, and she was dealing with it. I fell in love with her that night. Not the shallow, convenient kind of love my parents had. Real love. The kind that made me want to be better, braver, stronger. For 6 months, I lived 2 lives. During the day, I was Christopher Ashford, obedient son, future CEO, playing the part. At night and on weekends, I was just Christopher, holding Jennifer's hand in small cafes, walking through parks, sitting on her tiny apartment floor eating takeout. She made me feel human again. But I knew it couldn't last. My family was already pressuring me to propose to the heiress they'd chosen. My father had started making comments about responsibility and legacy. Deanna had started asking pointed questions about where I disappeared to on weekends. So I made a choice. I told Jennifer the truth about who I was, and I asked her to marry me. She said yes, even though she knew what it would cost me. Even though I warned her my family would never accept her. Even though she tried to talk me out of it, telling me I was throwing away too much. I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I was choosing something for myself. We got married quietly at City Hall, just the 2 of us and 2 strangers as witnesses. I wore a simple suit. She wore a white dress she bought on sale. There were no flowers, no photographers, no reception. Just us, our vows, and a future we'd have to build from nothing. When I told my family, all hell broke loose. And that's how I ended up standing outside those iron gates, holding Jennifer's hand, walking away from everything I'd ever known. The first year of our marriage was the hardest thing I'd ever endured, and I'd grown up under Richard Ashford's training. We moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city, the kind of place where the walls were so thin you could hear your neighbors breathing. Jennifer insisted on paying half the rent, even though she made a fraction of what I did. I had taken a job at a mid-sized marketing firm, nothing glamorous, but it was honest work and it was mine. No family connections, no shortcuts. Just my own effort. My father had made sure to blacklist me from the major companies in the industry. I'd hear whispers sometimes, see the recognition in interviewers' eyes when they heard my last name, watch their expressions shift from interested to apologetic. Sorry, we've decided to go in a different direction. Richard Ashford's reach was long, and his memory longer. He wanted me to fail. He wanted me to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, admitting that I couldn't survive without the family name. He wanted Jennifer gone. But I refused to give him the satisfaction. Jennifer worked herself to exhaustion. She kept her job at the bookstore and picked up freelance editing work online, staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning hunched over her laptop, eyes red and strained. I tried to tell her to slow down, that we'd manage, but she wouldn't listen. I left everything for you, she'd say quietly. The least I can do is pull my weight. That guilt she carried from the day my family disowned me never went away. It lived in her eyes, in the way she apologized for things that weren't her fault, in the way she pushed herself past her limits trying to prove she was worth the sacrifice I'd made. I hated that she felt that way. I loved her more for caring, but I hated that my family had planted that seed of doubt in her mind. Then there was the loneliness. I'd lost more than money when I left. I'd lost friends, or at least people I thought were friends. Turns out when you're no longer useful, when you can't get people into exclusive clubs or invest in their startup ideas, they stop calling. My phone went silent. Social media became a minefield of pictures showing my old circle living the life I'd walked away from. Deanna made sure to tag me in family photos, smiling smugly next to our parents at galas and vacation homes. "Look what you're missing," her posts seemed to scream. "Look what you gave up for her." I deleted all my social media after 3 months. It was easier than watching my old life continue without me. But the worst part, the part that truly tested me, was watching Jennifer suffer and knowing it was because of me. Her mother's condition worsened. The medical bills piled up. We struggled to make ends meet, juggling payments, cutting every corner we could. We ate rice and eggs for dinner more nights than I could count. We walked everywhere to save on transportation. Jennifer stopped buying new clothes entirely, patching up old ones until they fell apart. And through it all, she never once complained. She never said, "This isn't what I signed up for." She never looked at me with resentment or regret. But I saw the exhaustion. I saw her hands tremble from overwork. I saw her cry silently in the bathroom when she thought I couldn't hear, the weight of everything crushing her. I felt like I was failing her. I'd promised her a life, a future, and instead I'd dragged her into poverty and struggle. My pride, my stubborn refusal to apologize to my family and take the easy way back, was it worth her suffering? The doubts crept in late at night when I couldn't sleep, staring at the ceiling of our cramped apartment, listening to Jennifer's exhausted breathing beside me. Then, 8 months after we were cut off, Jennifer's mother passed away. We couldn't afford the funeral she deserved. We had a small service, just a handful of people, a simple casket. Jennifer stood there in a black dress I'd never seen before, probably borrowed, and she didn't cry. She just stared at the casket with empty eyes, and I knew she was blaming herself. If she hadn't married me, if she'd had more money, maybe her mother could have had better care. Maybe she'd still be alive. I tried to comfort her, but what could I say? I had nothing to offer but empty words. That night, she finally broke. We were back in our apartment, sitting on the floor because we'd sold our only couch to pay for the funeral costs. Jennifer looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "Did I kill her, Christopher? Did I kill my mother by choosing you?" The words shattered me. "No," I said, pulling her into my arms. "No, Jennifer, don't ever think that. This isn't your fault. It's mine. I'm the one who wasn't enough. I'm the one who couldn't provide." She clung to me, sobbing, and I held her, feeling more helpless than I'd ever felt in my life. I made a vow that night. I would fix this. I would build something, prove something, become someone who could give Jennifer the life she deserved. Not for my pride. Not to prove my family wrong. For her. Only for her. I started working like a man possessed. I took on extra projects. Freelanced on the side, taught myself everything I could about digital marketing and business development. Jennifer and I became a team, working side by side, late into the night, building something from nothing. Slowly, painfully, things started to improve. I landed a major client. Then another. My reputation grew, not because of my family name, but because of my work. Within 2 years, I'd saved enough to start my own consultancy. Within 3, I had a small team. By year 4, we were landing corporate contracts. And by year 5, my company had become one of the fastest growing marketing firms in the industry. Jennifer had started her own online editing business, and it had taken off beyond anything we'd imagined. We moved out of that tiny apartment into a real home. We paid off every debt. We started saving, investing, building the future we dreamed about on those hard nights. We'd made it. Against every odd, against my family's expectations, we'd built a life. And we'd done it together. Without their help. Without their name. Without their approval. I thought that would be the end of the story. I thought we could finally just be happy. I was wrong. Because that's when my family came back. The first contact came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my office, reviewing a campaign proposal for a major tech client, when my assistant buzzed in. "Mr. Ashford, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your sister." My hand froze over the keyboard. Deanna. I hadn't spoken to her in 5 years. Hadn't heard her voice, seen her face, nothing. And now she was here, in my office, in the life I'd built without her. "Send her in," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. The door opened and Deanna walked in, and I barely recognized her. She looked older, polished, wearing an expensive suit and carrying a designer bag that probably cost more than our first year's rent. But there was something different in her eyes, something almost uncertain. "Christopher," she said, and her voice was softer than I remembered. "It's been a long time." 5 years, I replied coldly. "What do you want?" She flinched slightly at my tone. "I deserve that. Can I sit?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. saying nothing. She sat down, placed her bag carefully beside her, and for a moment just looked at me. "You've done well for yourself," she said finally. "I've been following your company. It's impressive." "I didn't come here for small talk, Deanna." She nodded. "Right. I'll get to the point. It's Dad. He's sick, Christopher. Really sick. The doctors say he has maybe a year, possibly less. Heart condition." Something shifted in my chest, some old emotion I thought I'd buried. I kept my face blank. "I'm sorry to hear that." "That's it." Deanna's voice rose slightly. "That's all you have to say." "What do you want me to say?" I shot back. "He disowned me. He threw me out. He tried to destroy my career before it even started. And now he's sick and I'm supposed to what? Forget all of that. Come running back." Her eyes filled with tears. "He wants to see you. He won't admit it, but I know he does. Mom does too. They made a mistake, Christopher. They know that now." "A mistake," I repeated, the word tasting bitter. "They treated Jennifer like dirt. They called her worthless, a gold digger, trash. They made her feel like she destroyed our family just by existing. And you," I pointed at Deanna. "You stood there and smiled while they did it. You didn't say one word in our defense." "I was young," she whispered. "I was stupid and selfish and I didn't understand, but I do now. Please, Christopher. Just come see him. Once. That's all I'm asking." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. Part of me wanted to throw her out, tell her to never come back. But another part, the part that still remembered growing up together, sharing secrets, being siblings before everything fell apart, that part hesitated. "I'll think about it," I said finally. Deanna's face lit up with hope. "Really? Don't get excited," I warned. I said, "I'll think about it." "That's not a yes." She nodded quickly, standing up. "Thank you. That's all I can ask." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Christopher, I really am sorry. For everything." Then she was gone, leaving me alone with a whirlwind of emotions I didn't know how to process. That night, I told Jennifer about the visit. We were in our living room, a space that still felt surreal after years in that cramped apartment. She listened quietly, her hand resting on mine. "How do you feel?" she asked when I finished. "I don't know," I admitted. "Angry. Confused. Part of me wants to tell them all to go to hell. But part of me wonders if I should hear them out." "What do you want to do?" Jennifer asked gently. I looked at her, this woman who'd stood by me through everything, who'd never once asked me to reconcile with my family even though it would have made her life easier. "What do you think I should do?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I think," she said slowly, "that you'll regret it if you don't at least try. Not for them. For yourself. You need closure, Christopher. Whether that closure is forgiving them or telling them face to face exactly how they hurt you, that's up to you. But running from it won't make the pain go away." I pulled her close, resting my forehead against hers. "How did I get so lucky to find you?" She smiled sadly. "I think we found each other when we both needed someone most." 2 days later, I drove to my family's estate for the first time in 5 years. My hands were clenched tight on the steering wheel the entire way. Jennifer had offered to come with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. As I pulled up to those iron gates, the same ones I'd walked away from with nothing but a suitcase and hope, I felt like I was 26 again. Small. Powerless. Afraid. But I wasn't that person anymore. I'd survived. I'd succeeded. I'd built a life without them. I pressed the intercom button. "Yes," came a voice I didn't recognize. "New staff." "Christopher Ashford," I said. "I'm here to see my father." There was a pause, then the gate swung open. I drove up the long driveway, memories flooding back with every turn. The fountain where Deanna and I used to play. The garden where my mother hosted her parties. The front steps where I'd stood in my graduation gown while my father told me the entire company would be mine someday. It all felt like another lifetime. The front door opened before I could knock. My mother stood there, and the sight of her stopped me cold. She looked smaller somehow. Older. Her hair had more gray in it. The perfect makeup couldn't quite hide the lines around her eyes. "Christopher," she breathed, and her voice cracked. "Oh, Christopher." She reached out like she wanted to hug me, then stopped, uncertain. I stood there, frozen, not knowing what to do. "Mom," I said, finally, and the word felt foreign in my mouth. She stepped back, composing herself. "Come in. Please. Your father is in his study." I walked through the foyer. My footsteps echoing on the marble floors. Everything looked the same. Same paintings. Same furniture. Same cold perfection. But it felt different. Or maybe I was different. My mother led me to the study and knocked softly before opening the door. "Richard," she said quietly. "Christopher is here." I stepped inside, and there he was. My father, the man who'd always seemed invincible, sitting in his leather chair looking frail and tired. He looked up, and for a second, something flickered in his eyes. Relief. Regret. Maybe even love. Then his expression hardened into something neutral. "Christopher," he said. "You came." "I came," I replied. My heart was pounding. This was it. The moment I'd imagined 1,000 different ways over 5 years. And I had no idea what would happen next. My father gestured to the chair across from his desk, the same chair where I used to sit during his lectures about responsibility and legacy. I remained standing. "This isn't a social visit," I said flatly. "Deanna said you wanted to see me. Here I am. What do you want?" He studied me for a long moment, and I watched him take in the expensive suit I wore, the confidence in my posture, the way I no longer looked at him with the desperate need for approval I'd carried my whole life. "You've changed," he said finally. "I grew up," I corrected him. "Something I had to do on my own since you decided I wasn't worth your time." "Christopher, please," my mother interjected from where she stood near the door. "We know we made mistakes. We want to make things right." "Make things right," I repeated, turning to her. "You want to make 5 years of silence right. 5 years of struggling. Of Jennifer working herself sick, of being blacklisted from jobs because of the Ashford name. How exactly do you plan to make that right?" "Your father is dying," my mother said, her voice trembling. "Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I felt something twist in my chest, but I kept my expression cold. "What do you want from me?" "Sympathy. Forgiveness. A tearful reunion. Because I'm not sure I have any of that left to give." "Sit down," my father said, and there was a hint of his old authority in his voice. "Please." Against my better judgment, I sat. My father leaned back in his chair, looking more tired than I'd ever seen him. "I was wrong," he said, and the words seemed to cost him. "About you. About Jennifer. About everything. I thought you'd fail. I thought you'd come crawling back within months, begging to be let back in. I thought that was the only way you'd learn." "Learn what?" I asked bitterly. "That I couldn't survive without you. That my worth was tied to your money and your name. Instead, you proved me wrong," he continued. "You built something real. Something impressive. Without our help. Without our name. I've been watching your company, Christopher. I've seen what you've accomplished. And I'm proud of you." The words hung in the air between us. Words I'd waited my entire childhood to hear. Words that would have meant everything to me 5 years ago. Now they just felt hollow. "You're proud of me," I said slowly. "Now, after 5 years, after you tried to ruin me." He had the decency to look ashamed. I was angry. "I thought you were throwing your life away for a woman who was using you. I was wrong about her, too. I've had people look into her background, her business. She's brilliant, hardworking. She's built something from nothing, just like you did." "You had people investigate my wife," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. He waved a hand dismissively. "I needed to know who my son married. What I found was impressive. She's not what I thought she was." "That's not the point," I snapped, standing up. "You don't get to decide 5 years later that Jennifer is good enough. You don't get to investigate her like she's some business acquisition. She's my wife. She's the woman who stood by me when I had nothing. And your approval means absolutely nothing to either of us now." "Christopher," my mother pleaded, "we want you back in the family. Both of you. We want to make amends. What your father is trying to say is that we've set aside a substantial trust for you, $50 million. And a position as executive vice president at Ashford Enterprises. You'd be second only to your father, and when he passes, the entire company would be yours." The room went silent. $50 million. The position I'd been groomed for my entire life. Everything I'd thought I wanted before I met Jennifer. Everything they dangled in front of me like a carrot, then ripped away. And now they were offering it back. Like nothing had happened. Like 5 years of pain could be erased with a check and a job title. There was a knock on the study door. "Come in," my father called. Deanna entered, and she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man I recognized from business magazines. Frederick Chen, one of the wealthiest venture capitalists in the country. Deanna was holding his arm, smiling that same calculated smile I remembered from our childhood. "Christopher," Deanna said brightly. "I want you to meet my fiancé, Frederick. We're getting married next month." Of course she was. Deanna had done what she always did, found the most advantageous match possible. Frederick extended his hand. And I shook it on autopilot. "I've heard great things about your company," he said warmly. "Very impressive growth trajectory. Perhaps we could discuss investment opportunities. This is why we wanted you here, my father said, gesturing to all of us. Family. Together. The way it should be. Deanna's wedding will be the perfect opportunity to reintroduce you and Jennifer to society. Show everyone that the Ashfords are united. I finally understood. This wasn't about reconciliation. This wasn't about love or regret or wanting me back. This was about appearances. My father was dying, and he wanted to secure his legacy. He wanted the family united, the company succession clear, everything neat and tidy before he went. And Deanna's marriage to Frederick, one of the most powerful men in finance, that was just icing on the cake. They wanted to show off their perfect family, including the prodigal son, who'd returned. And Jennifer, the woman they'd called worthless, she'd suddenly become acceptable now that she was successful. Now that she had her own money, her own reputation. Now that being associated with her wouldn't embarrass them. My stomach turned. No, I said quietly. Everyone stared at me. What? My father asked. No, I repeated. Louder this time. I'm not interested in your money. I'm not interested in a position at your company. And I'm definitely not interested in playing happy family for the sake of appearances. Christopher. Be reasonable, my mother started. I am being reasonable, I cut her off. You want to rewrite history. Pretend the last 5 years didn't happen. Parade Jennifer and me around like we're proof that you're not the people who threw their own son away from marrying someone you deemed beneath him. Well, I won't do it. Jennifer won't do it. We built our lives without you, and we don't need you now. You're making a mistake, my father said, and there was an edge to his voice. I'm offering you everything. Everything you could ever want. No, I said, meeting his eyes. You're offering me everything you think I should want. There's a difference. I turned and walked toward the door. If you leave now, my father called after me, his voice hard, don't expect another chance. This offer expires today. I paused at the doorway, looked back at him. Good, I said. Then we both know where we stand. I walked out of that study, out of that mansion, and I didn't look back. Not this time, but as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. My family didn't give up easily, and something about the way Deanna had looked at me, calculating and cold, told me there was more coming. I just didn't know what. For 2 weeks after that meeting, everything seemed normal. I went back to work, told Jennifer about the encounter, and we agreed we'd made the right choice. We didn't need my family's money or approval. We had each other and the life we'd built. That was enough. Then the attack started. It began subtly. One of our biggest clients suddenly pulled their contract, citing budget concerns. Then another. Then another. Within a week, we'd lost nearly 40% of our projected revenue for the quarter. My team was panicking, and I was scrambling to figure out what was happening. Then I found out. I was having lunch with an old colleague, someone I'd known from my early days in the industry who'd stayed neutral during my family drama. He leaned across the table, lowered his voice, and said, Christopher, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but word is going around that your company is financially unstable. That you've been engaging in unethical business practices. Someone's spreading rumors, and they're coming from high places. My blood ran cold. Who? He shook his head. I don't know for sure. But the rumors started right after it became known that you turned down your family's reconciliation offer. I felt sick. My father. He was doing it again. Trying to destroy me because I wouldn't play by his rules. But this time was different. This time I had something to lose. I had employees who depended on me. I had Jennifer, whose business was also starting to suffer from the association with my tainted reputation. I had a life I'd built with my own hands, and he was trying to tear it down. I went home that night furious and terrified in equal measure. Jennifer took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. They're coming after us, I told her, and I explained everything. Her face went pale. What are we going to do? I don't know, I admitted. Fight. I guess. But fighting Richard Ashford with his resources, his connections, his willingness to destroy his own son. I didn't know if we could win. The next morning, I got a call from Deanna. We need to talk, she said without preamble, in person. I almost hung up on her, but something in her voice stopped me. Fine. Where? There's a cafe on 7th Street. Meet me there in an hour. Come alone. I told Jennifer where I was going, kissed her goodbye, and drove to the cafe. Deanna was already there, sitting in a corner booth, looking nervous. I slid into the seat across from her. Talk, I said coldly. She took a breath. Dad is behind the rumors, I figured. Why are you telling me this? Because I didn't sign up for this, she said, and there was real emotion in her voice. I thought bringing you back would be good for everyone. I didn't think he'd try to ruin you when you refused. I stared at her. You really thought I'd just come running back after everything that happened? She looked down at her coffee cup. I thought maybe enough time had passed. That maybe you'd want to reconnect. I'm getting married, Christopher. I wanted my brother there. Against my will, I felt something soften slightly. Then why is this happening? Dad is old school, she said quietly. He sees it as disrespect. You embarrassed him by refusing. He thinks if he applies enough pressure, you'll have no choice but to accept his terms. He's going to keep going until your business is destroyed or you give in. Anger surged through me. So he's holding my livelihood hostage. She nodded miserably. I'm sorry. I tried to talk him out of it, but he won't listen. Mom won't stand up to him. And Frederick thinks family matters should stay private, so he won't get involved. I leaned back, processing this. Why are you really here, Deanna? To warn you, she said. And to tell you there might be a way out. I'm listening. Dad's going to make you an offer tomorrow. A public one. He's planning to announce at my engagement party that he's bringing you into the company, that the family is reunited. He'll frame it like it's already decided. If you refuse publicly, he'll look weak. He'll escalate even more. But if you accept, you're trapped in his world again. It was a perfect trap. Refuse and face total destruction. Accept and lose everything I'd fought for, my independence. My self-respect. Jennifer's trust. There has to be another option, I said. Deanna bit her lip. There might be. What if you publicly expose what he's doing? The rumors, the sabotage. Everything. It would hurt the family, reputation. Destroy Dad's image. He'd have to back off or risk losing everything he's built. But you'd have to have proof. I thought about it. Proof. I'd need recordings, documents, something concrete. Do you have proof? I asked Deanna. She reached into her purse and pulled out a USB drive, sliding it across the table. Emails. Voice recordings from his office. I've been collecting them for the past week. Everything you need to prove what he's doing. I stared at the drive like it was a bomb. Why would you do this? You're risking your inheritance, your relationship with them. She smiled sadly. Because you're my brother. And because I've spent 5 years watching what they did to you, what it cost you, and feeling guilty every single day. Maybe this is my chance to finally do the right thing. I picked up the drive. Thank you. She nodded. There's one more thing. What? Jennifer. Dad's planning to go after her business next if you don't cooperate. He's already started looking into her clients, her contracts. He'll destroy her too. Rage like I'd never felt before flooded through me. He goes after Jennifer, and I will burn his entire empire to the ground. Good, Deanna said quietly. Because that's exactly the fire you're going to need. That night, Jennifer and I sat together, reviewing everything on the USB drive. It was damning. Emails from my father to business associates, asking them to cut ties with my company. Recordings of him discussing strategy to isolate me financially. Evidence of bribery, manipulation, everything. We could destroy him with this, Jennifer said softly. We could, I agreed. But it would be nuclear. The family name, the company, everything would be tainted. Deanna's marriage might fall apart. Mom would be humiliated. Jennifer took my hand. What do you want to do? I looked at her, this woman who'd sacrificed so much, who was now being targeted again because of my family's cruelty. I want to protect you. I want to protect what we built. And I want them to finally understand that I'm not the powerless kid they threw away. Then, let's do it, she said firmly. Let's show them exactly who Christopher Ashford became. The engagement party was held at the Ashford estate, a massive event with hundreds of guests from high society, business, and politics. Jennifer and I arrived together, both dressed impeccably, both ready for war. Deanna greeted us at the door, looking relieved. You came. We came, I said. Is everything ready? She nodded. Dad's planning to make the announcement in 20 minutes during the toast. That's when you should act. Jennifer squeezed my hand. We've got this. We walked into the ballroom, and I felt every eye turn toward us. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The disowned son. The wife from nowhere. We were the scandal everyone wanted to see. My father stood near the front of the room, holding court with a group of businessmen. When he saw me, his expression shifted to something satisfied, triumphant. He thought I'd come to surrender. He was wrong. The time came for the toast. My father stepped up to the microphone, glass of champagne in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. His voice strong, despite his illness. Thank you all for celebrating this joyous occasion with us. My daughter Deanna's engagement to Frederick Chen is a wonderful union, and I couldn't be prouder. He paused, his eyes finding mine across the room. But tonight is special for another reason as well. It marks the reunion of our family. My son, Christopher, who has been building his own path these past years, is returning to Ashford Enterprises. Together, we'll take this company into the future." The room erupted in polite applause. My father raised his glass toward me, waiting for me to acknowledge the announcement, to smile and nod and accept. Instead, I walked forward through the crowd, pulling out my phone. I connected it to the venue's AV system, something I'd arranged with Deanna earlier. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the applause, "I'd like to share something with everyone here. Something I think you all should know about Richard Ashford and how he really does business." My father's face went white. "Christopher, what are you doing?" "Telling the truth," I said. And I pressed play. The first recording filled the room. My father's voice. Cold and calculating. Instructing someone to spread false rumors about my company's financial stability. Then an email appeared on the screens around the ballroom, showing him pressuring a client to break their contract with me. Then another recording. Another email. Piece after piece of evidence, showing exactly what kind of man Richard Ashford really was. The room was silent, every guest staring at the screens in shock. My mother stood frozen. Deanna watched from the side, tears in her eyes. My father just stood there, his face a mask of fury and humiliation. When the last piece of evidence finished playing, I took the microphone. 5 years ago, I said, my voice steady, my father disowned me for marrying the woman I love. He said I chose her over family, over my future, over everything he built. He was right. I did choose her. Because she's worth more than all of this. I gestured to the opulent ballroom. The wealth on display. For 5 years, my wife and I built our own lives. We struggled. We fought. We succeeded without the Ashford name. And when we didn't need him anymore, when we'd proven we could make it on our own, my father decided he wanted us back. Not because he loved me. Not because he regretted what he'd done. But because it looked good for his legacy. And when I refused, he tried to destroy me all over again. I looked directly at my father. "You taught me a lot, Dad. You taught me about business, about strategy, about never showing weakness. But the most important thing you taught me was what kind of man I never want to become." I handed the microphone back and took Jennifer's hand. We walked out of that ballroom together, leaving behind the stunned silence, the ruined party, and the Ashford family legacy in tatters. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. By the next morning, the recordings and emails had spread across social media and news outlets. Richard Ashford, titan of industry, exposed as a vindictive manipulator willing to destroy his own son. The Ashford Enterprises stock dropped 15% in a single day. Business partners distanced themselves. Clients reconsidered contracts. The pristine family reputation, carefully cultivated over decades, lay in ruins. My phone exploded with calls from journalists, from former colleagues, from people I hadn't spoken to in years. I ignored most of them. Jennifer and I stayed home, holding each other, watching the storm we'd created unfold on television. "Are you okay?" she asked me that first night. I thought about it. Surprisingly, yes. "I feel lighter. Like I've finally cut the last chain tying me to them." She kissed my forehead. "I'm proud of you." Within 3 days, my father issued a public statement. It was carefully worded by lawyers, a non-apology that acknowledged mistakes without taking real responsibility. He announced he was stepping down from active management of Ashford Enterprises for health reasons. The company's board would assume control during his treatment and recovery. I knew what that really meant. He'd been forced out. The board couldn't risk keeping him in power after the scandal. My mother called once. I let it go to voicemail. "Christopher," her recorded voice said, trembling, "I don't know what to say. Your father is devastated. The company is in chaos. Was this really necessary? Did you have to destroy everything?" There was a long pause. "I suppose we gave you no choice. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. I hope someday you can forgive us." I deleted the message. Maybe someday I would forgive them, but not today. Not anytime soon. Deanna called too, but hers I answered. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Bad," she admitted. "Frederick's family is pressuring him to call off the engagement. They don't want to be associated with the scandal. Dad won't speak to me because he knows I helped you. Mom just cries all day." I felt a pang of guilt. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you." "Don't be," Deanna said firmly. "I made my choice. I helped you because it was right. If Frederick can't handle that, then maybe he's not the right person anyway. Besides," she added, her voice lighter, "I talked to Jennifer yesterday. She offered me a job at her editing company if I need it. Turns out I'm actually pretty good at proofreading corporate documents." "Who knew?" I smiled. "You talked to Jennifer?" We've been texting, Deanna said. She's good for you, Christopher. I'm glad you didn't give up on her. Me too. There was a pause. Do you think we can ever be a real family again? Deanna asked quietly. You and me. I thought about it. Maybe. Someday. We'll have to see. That's more than I deserve, she said softly. Thank you. After we hung up, Jennifer came into the room carrying 2 cups of tea. She handed me one and curled up beside me on the couch. Deanna, okay, she asked. She will be. I put my arm around her. And what about us? Jennifer smiled. We're better than okay. My business inquiries have tripled since the story broke. Apparently people respect someone who stands up to powerful bullies. Your company too. I've been monitoring the news. Half the clients your father scared away have reached out to apologize and restart contracts. We really did it, I said, almost disbelieving. We really survived. We did more than survive, Jennifer corrected. We won. 2 months later, my father died. His heart gave out one night in his sleep. My mother called to tell me, her voice hollow. The funeral is on Saturday, she said. I hope you'll come. I thought about it for a long time. In the end, Jennifer and I went together. We stood in the back of the church during the service, not sitting with the family, just observing. I watched my mother, dressed in black, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen her. I watched Deanna, who'd broken off her engagement to Frederick and was there alone. I watched the parade of business associates and society, friends, all paying respects to a man most of them had abandoned in his final months. I felt sadness, but not the crushing grief I'd expected. I mourned not for the man he was, but for the father he could have been. For the relationship we might have had if he'd chosen love over control. After the service, my mother approached us. She looked at Jennifer for a long moment, then said quietly, "He was wrong about you. I was wrong about you. I see that now." Jennifer nodded gracefully but said nothing. My mother turned to me. "I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to ask for it. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you. Not because you succeeded in business, but because you had the courage to choose your own path and the strength to walk it no matter the cost." "Thank you," I said simply. "Can I?" She hesitated. "Can I stay in touch? Occasionally. I'd like to know how you're both doing." I looked at Jennifer, who squeezed my hand supportively. "Small steps," I told my mother. "We'll see how it goes." She nodded, tears in her eyes. Small steps. That's more than I hoped for. Deanna hugged us both before we left. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. It meant a lot. "Take care of yourself," I told her, "and call if you need anything. Even if it's just to talk, I will." She pulled back, smiling through tears. "And Christopher, you were right. About everything. Walking away, choosing Jennifer, fighting back. You were right." We left the funeral and drove home in comfortable silence. That evening, Jennifer and I sat on our balcony, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and amber. "Do you have any regrets?" Jennifer asked. "About your family? About how everything turned out?" I thought about it honestly. No. It hurt, and it was hard, and there were times I thought we wouldn't make it. But I'd do it all again exactly the same way. Because I ended up here, with you. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "What do you want to do now? Now that this chapter is finally closed?" I smiled. "Live. Build. Be happy. Maybe start thinking about that family we always talked about wanting." Jennifer looked up at me, eyes shining. "Really? Really," I confirmed. "We've proven we can handle anything life throws at us. I think we're ready." She kissed me, and in that moment, everything felt right. The past was behind us. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility. My family had disowned me for marrying her, tried to destroy us when we succeeded without them, and in the end, they'd lost everything while we gained the one thing money couldn't buy. Freedom. Love. A life built on our own terms. 6 months later, we held a celebration at our home. Not a huge event, just close friends, genuine people who'd supported us through everything. Deanna came, bringing a date who actually seemed like a decent person. My mother sent a gift with a card that simply said, "Congratulations. With love." As I stood there, Jennifer beside me, surrounded by laughter and warmth, I realized something. I'd spent years chasing my family's approval, then years running from their rejection. But in the end, the greatest revenge wasn't destroying them. It was building something beautiful without them and being genuinely happy. They wanted us back for our money, for the appearance of family unity, for their own benefit, but we didn't need them. We never did, and that was the most powerful truth of all. "Christopher," Jennifer called, pulling me back to the present. "Come on. Deanna wants to make a toast." I walked over, put my arm around my wife, and listened as my sister raised her glass. To Christopher and Jennifer, Deanna said, her voice strong and clear. To the bravest people I know. Thank you for showing me what real family looks like. Everyone cheered and drank. I looked around at the life we built, the people who truly mattered, and I felt nothing but gratitude. This was our happy ending. Not perfect, not without scars, but ours. And nobody could ever take that away.